Good morning and welcome to today's Daily Word. Thanks for joining me on this Tuesday morning, this rather dull, dreary day that we're having again, chilly day again that we're having, even though it's May. But either way, thanks for joining me for our time together and our constant ongoing conversation through Scripture and what it means for us and how we apply it to our lives and how God speaks to us through it. So, as always, I'm thankful that you join me. I'm thankful that you say good morning or good afternoon or good evening, whatever that looks like. I know that that's a commitment that you make every day to spend 8 or 9 or 10 minutes with me, and I do appreciate that with all that I have. So, today is daily word number 716 as we continue this journey together. So, yesterday, as you know, I went to the pain doctor to get some injections in my knee, 3 of them actually. It was a rather painful experience that I went through. Just initially, it wasn't bad. But I'm sorry to say that that hasn't changed anything. My knee hurts just as bad as it always has. It made no difference, unfortunately. And so I have to call there tomorrow and tell them my results, which are none, and then see what the next steps are. So still a lot of pain as always, but it is what it is. I said I didn't have a lot of hope going there, and so while I'm disappointed, I didn't expect a miraculous thing. It's been 3 years, and so miracles don't. I don't expect them to happen, at least in the moments. So thanks for your prayers yesterday. I appreciate they'll be continued, and maybe they'll offer me something else since yesterday didn't have any success. So this morning, I have chosen this interesting. Well, it's two verses from this interesting story, and we'll talk more about the entire story. But it's from 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 8 through 9. The word of the Holy One came to Elijah, saying, "Go now to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and live there, for I have commanded a widow there to feed you." Now, I would encourage you to read the entire story. I'm going to give you a bit of synopsis about it, but I would encourage you to go to 1 Kings chapter 17 and read this whole story. So Elijah is dying of thirst. There hasn't been any rain, and so God sends Elijah out, and there he finds a brook, and he drinks water from the brook, but then the brook dries up because there is no rain. And so God gives this command to Elijah to go, and you'll find this widow there who I've commanded to take care of you. And so Elijah goes and meets the widow at the edge of town and at the town gate. And there's this conversation about how much flour there is, how much oil there is, how much water there is. And Elijah says to her, "Look, go and make some bread for me, make some bread for you and your son." Because she's already told him, "What I have left, we're going to eat and then we're going to die." But Elijah reminds her that God's going to provide, that the flour and the oil will never run out. And so that happens, and they take care of each other. But the woman's son becomes ill, and then, of course, Elijah prays to God, and God restores the life of this young boy. And then the woman said to Elijah, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth." So this story's an interesting one because when I first read it, I got to thinking about, well, God's sending Elijah to the widow to feed him. And so there's that conversation that happens. But then I realized that it was Elijah sent by God to, if you will, help the situation turn the corner and to change the life of the widow and her son. And so this ongoing conversation happens. It's an amazing story. I think it's interesting that for the story, God provides for these people to meet and for their lives to change. And then for God to be recognized in the person of Elijah through the eyes of the widow, whose son is then raised. And so I think it's interesting that, for all of us, and it's true for me, and I know it's true for you probably, for all of us, there's an Elijah in each of our lives. Someone who shows up to help us along the way, to understand who we are and how we are and what we have to give and what we have to share. Maybe it's somebody who comes along in our lives that reminds us that where we are, even though times are tough and we're in difficult situations, we look at each other as a blessing, and that God moves in us and helps us shape our lives, and that we do that together. Maybe it's us looking at our neighbors, those we encounter in life, as a blessing and not a curse. Maybe what we have to do too is shift our thinking about who we are and what we have to give, to know that we have enough, just enough maybe, to help change the lives of others, and that others have enough to help us in our lives and in our pursuits and in what we need the most in life. And I think this is such a remarkable story for us. In the midst of our difficult world, in the midst of our own struggles, physically, with relationships, the struggle, I know I've been talking to parents of seniors in high school. I've been there, and it's a tough, the month of May is tough. All these last things that are happening. The last day of school, graduation parties, graduation, all these things that happen, I have on my calendar, interestingly enough, Carter, my oldest grandson, is going to graduate from preschool. How is that even possible? He's going to graduate from preschool. But I think about all these things in our lives, and I'm reminded so clearly about this story that it's God, in the end, who puts Elijah and this widow and her son together, because God is going to work in their lives to provide abundance and blessing, even when they can't recognize it. And it's true for us, right? People are in our lives. We're blessed to have people in our lives who bless us and remind us of God's provision for us. I think it's interesting what jumps out at me at the very end of this story, and it's not scripture that I shared with you. When the woman says to Elijah, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth." It's because God has made a difference again. It's God who moves us and shapes us and gives us opportunity and puts us in the right places to make a difference in the lives of others. And so for all of us, wherever we are in our lives, I know that God brings Elijahs to us to enhance our lives, and to know that it's God who continues to shape us. So that's our word for today. I hope you get something from that, and a reminder of God's provision for us. So, know of God's love that surrounds you. Know of my love for you. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Have a great day.